that it is not the forward-facing sonar that caused folks to tune out of that Lake Sinclair event, but rather, I think it's the format. But mark my words, the day is going to come when someone's going to say that forward-facing sonar is an existential threat to our democracy. Should pro anglers be able to compete against us common folk? If money is involved, the answer is yes. We'll get those live vests zipped and clipped, strap down those rods, and stow away those tackle bags because we are going fishing. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Bass 2 Anglers podcast. I'm your host, Keith Neiswanger, and I hope this episode finds you with 5 for 25 stored in your Bubba Pro Series Smart Fish Scale, integrated seamlessly with Major League Fishing's Score Tracker. If you don't shop online at copperstatetackle.com by now, what are you waiting for? Bass fishing awesomeness as far as the eye can see. Use our promo code BTAP1 to save 10% every time you go shopping online for tackle. Go to copperstatetackle.com, use our code BTAP1, save 10%. Crankbait or jig? What should I throw? Let's flip a coin. Heads, crankbait. Tails, jig. It is tails. We're going to fish a jig. Jerkbait or jig head minnow? What do I throw? Let's flip a coin. Heads, jerkbait. Tails, jig head minnow. It is heads. Jerkbait. Glide bait or swim bait? What do I throw? Let's flip a coin. Well, let's call it first. Heads, glide bait. Tails, swimmer. It is heads. Glide bait. My new bait selector system, based on coin flips. No more thinking. If BASS can flip a coin to determine whether an event is a forward-facing sonar event or not a forward-facing sonar event, surely I can use the same technique to decide which bait to throw. Brilliant. We can just use coin flips to make the big decisions in our lives. You see where this is going?
Caymas Boats, from the mind of Earl Bentz. Excellence, tradition, and service, all part of the Caymas advantage. On the water perfection. This is your next boat. Build your next boat at caymasboats.com.
Is forward-facing sonar going away? In light of recent coin flips used by BASS to determine which of its Elite Series events will be forward-facing sonar events, Major League Fishing's limitations on both the Bass Pro Tour and the Major League Fishing Invitationals, and the NPFL just flat out banning the use of technology, the question seems to be a valid one. Is forward-facing sonar going away? BASS CEO Chase Anderson told BTL's Matt Pangrac that ratings are a big part of his organization's rule changes. Anderson stated that last season's Lake Sinclair event, which was a forward-facing sonar-dominated event, had 30% fewer viewers than other events. Get ready now, because I'm about to drop another idea on you. I'm going to suggest that it is not the forward-facing sonar that caused folks to tune out of that Lake Sinclair event, but rather, I think it's the format that caused people not to watch. I only have my own personal taste and interest to go on here, so what I'm going to say is clearly not very scientific. But neither is blaming a 30% drop in viewership on the use of forward-facing sonar. When I watch a BASS Elite Series event, only the first couple hours have any kind of meaning to me. I know that sounds kind of sacrilegious, but hear me out on this. After the field has their 5-fish limits, increased catches begin to become less and less important to the actual standings. How many times have you watched a BASS Elite Series event and the standings just simply don't change towards the end of the day? You've heard me make this complaint before. In an Elite Series event, if a 5-pounder you catch culls out a 4.5-pounder, then that 5-pounder was only worth a half pound to you in your overall weight. I find that to be frustrating. So now let's talk about that forward-facing sonar event at Lake Sinclair, where the anglers were offshore using their forward-facing sonar and catching cookie cutter 4-pounders that really only helped them cull up a few ounces at a time. It's kind of unwatchable. Not because of forward-facing sonar, but because the leader, who has, let's say, a 4-pound lead, and any 4-pound fish that's caught by competitors is only going to cull up a few ounces. Now, if you add an every fish counts format, where every 4-pounder counts as 4 pounds, throw in a score tracker where everyone knows the score, now it becomes a sporting event. We know the score. What a concept. Now you have an event that's worth watching. So, I would suggest the format is the issue and not the forward-facing sonar. Now I want to talk about the rhetoric used in the forward-facing sonar debate. Those who like forward-facing sonar, they like it. They're not bad-mouthing folks who don't use it. They like it. They use it. In fact, they probably don't want you to use it because that's more fish for them. People who don't like forward-facing sonar seek to demonize it. You've heard the terms: cheater box, video game fishing, spotlighting, cherry picking. I haven't heard it yet, but mark my words, the day is going to come when someone's going to say that forward-facing sonar is an existential threat to our democracy. The folks that do not like forward-facing sonar use terms that demean, shame, and discredit those who are using forward-facing sonar. And don't get me started about how the younger anglers on tour rise up at a younger age because they use forward-facing sonar. That is the biggest bunch of malarkey that's currently being thrown around out there by those who don't like the technology. The young anglers on tour that are dominating today have been fishing competitive events since they were in middle school. Junior high school, and collegiate tournament fishing has given today's younger anglers experience that most pros never get until they're in their 40s or 50s. So if you're talking about why somebody has to be older to be good, it's because they probably didn't get to fish starting in middle school up until they finished college. That's a huge amount of learning that younger anglers bring to the table today. Again, I maintain that many of the loud voices who oppose forward-facing sonar haven't taken the time to get better at it. They either haven't tried it or simply cannot or will not put the time in to get better at it. It's just so much easier to call it a cheater box than it is to actually try and get better at it. So, is forward-facing sonar going away? I hope not. I hated recently when Major League Baseball outlawed the infield shift because professional hitters couldn't or wouldn't hit to the opposite field. I would watch those games and see 3 infielders on the left side for a right-handed batter, and it's like, lay down a bunt, hit the opposite way. But no, these guys couldn't or wouldn't make the effort to try and change their game. They wanted to pull for power, and so anyway, Major League Baseball had to make a rule to outlaw the shift. Didn't like that. It felt to me like lazy hitters were being rewarded for not getting better at their jobs. I hate to see forward-facing sonar outlawed just because a vocal group of fans, influencers, and anglers couldn't or wouldn't get better at it.
Ducket Fishing, pro-driven rods, reels, and baits, the choice of champions. Check out ducketfishing.com to see what everybody's talking about. Ducket Fishing, pro-driven.
Well, here you go. Bass Pro Tour Pro Keith Poche recently put a stomp down on the field at the Alabama River Super BFL out of Prattsville, Alabama. Actually, he won the event by a little over a pound. Still, he showed up, he paid his entry fee, walked away with the top prize, a little over $5,000. And there was howling. Pro anglers shouldn't be allowed in weekend warrior events. We've heard these complaints before. Pro anglers should not be allowed to compete against amateur anglers. There actually are some organizations that outlaw professional anglers because the other non-pro contestants have complained that the pros are taking their money. And that's the key word right there, money. Once you introduce fishing for prize money, you have made it a pro event. If you're going to hold a Tuesday night fruit jar event and the local tour pro who happens to be home that week decides to jump in it and wants to fish it, suck it up, Buttercup. Years ago, when Aaron Martins had left the West to pursue his BASS career, he'd still drop back in on us from time to time to fish a WAN Bass team event with his mom. Oh, there was howling. But I always felt it was a privilege to be able to share the water with a heavy hitter like Aaron. I've always known myself to be a tournament donator. Might as well donate money to a pro, right? It's a question that has literally been asked since bass fishing became a thing. Should pros be allowed to compete against Joes? Should pro anglers be able to compete against us common folk? If money is involved, the answer is yes. Does anyone out there see the similarity between the movement to ban forward-facing sonar and the successful movement several years ago to ban the Alabama rig? The claim in those days, back in 2012 to be exact, was that the A-rig reduced the skill needed to win bass tournaments. Reduced the skill needed to win bass tournaments. You're telling me that the A-rig is that mythical magic bait that everyone says can't exist? That's what it sounds like you're saying to me. The A-rig is so good that it reduces the skill needed to win bass tournaments. Does that sound familiar? You've heard me say that my experience with forward-facing sonar is that it has been very frustrating. I can see the fish. I can get him to follow my bait. Heck, I can even see him give me the middle finger when they turn and swim away. I can see all that. I just can't catch him very well. Oh, sure, once in a while, but without any kind of consistency. I think I'd have to work at this to get better. What a concept. Same is true with my A-rig experience. I'll catch one every so often, but the fish certainly don't jump in the boat when I throw an A-rig. To me, the forward-facing sonar question and the A-rig question are both rooted in the same ignorance. Anglers are not and were not willing to put in the time to get better with forward-facing sonar or the A-rig, so they complain until organizations give in. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Here's part one of an ongoing series that I want to do that I'm going to refer to as What Happened to These Baits? The series is going to highlight lure techniques that seem to have gone away in recent times. It is likely that other techniques have replaced these old standards, but it does make you wonder, why did I stop using this technique? The first technique, I will admit, is not one I came up with. I heard it questioned on another channel. I'm sorry, but I don't remember whose channel that was. But here we go, the Texas rig. I'm sure some people still fish it, but it used to be my number one finesse technique. I used to throw it all the time. I learned it from Don Iovino, old guy out here in Southern California that is the father of finesse fishing. Don Iovino coined the term doodling back in the day. The presentation evolved into something we weren't quite as embarrassed to say, shaking. So a doodling worm became shaken. It was especially effective if you could find brush piles on structure and you could shake that worm right above or right in the brush pile. Deadly. Shaking a 6-inch oxblood worm in deep brush at Lake Casitas or Diamond Valley was the juice in the early 2000s. It was most effective if you threw it out into deeper water and just shook the bait uphill. Dynamite fish catching technique. Now, I suppose the drop shot and maybe later the Ned rig are probably responsible for my own movement away from the Texas rig. But man, I used to catch a lot of fish on a Texas rig. I'm Keith Neiswanger. This is the Bass 2 Anglers podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you'd like to reach us, please send us a direct message on Instagram at Bass Tour Anglers Podcast. Take care. Be safe. We'll talk to you next time.